Hey friends, and welcome to Mom Talk Maryland. I'm your host, Claire Duarte, founder of the Columbia Mom, and this is your spot for real conversations, local love, and a whole lot of community. Whether you're folding laundry, running errands, or hiding in your car for some peace and quiet, let's dive in. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Erika, I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course. We are kicking off right after spring break, you know, and my husband said to me this morning, it's April. It's officially April.
It is officially April.
It's crazy.
Thank goodness.
I know. I do start to feel like the year is flying by a little bit, but in a good way. I think, things are warming up.
Sort of. And then today.
I know. And I'm kind of refusing to, I hit a point where I'm like, I'm not wearing a real jacket anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I will do a denim. Like, I'm wearing, this is my variation of, I'm wearing pants, but they're crop.
Yep.
I'm wearing a sweater.
But it says beach.
But it says beach. And I'm not, I will not wear a jacket. I have a scarf just in case.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I'm done.
It's bad.
I know.
The weather is crazy.
Yeah.
And, it's like 15 seasons in one day or 1 week.
Yep.
But it's April.
The joy of Maryland.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
I know. Well, I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so glad that we got connected in the fall, first of all, and attending your big event in December, which we'll chat about in a little bit.
Yes.
But why I'm so excited to have you here is because I want to hear more about, I know the story now, but I'm excited to kind of share with anybody that doesn't know or didn't already know. If you've heard about Columbia Cares, great. But what I love about the podcast is I love an origin story. And I know that's one of the first things I asked you. I was and because it was we both had talked about our COVID origination, you know what I mean? And you've grown tremendously since then, and that to me is so cool to see. Yes, even I know that I've grown tremendously from COVID too, but what you've built for this community, and you stepped away from teaching to grow this massive thing, and the partnerships that you've gained along the way to the new literal things that are being built in this community because of this organization. This is just so freaking cool, and this is what I get so lit up and excited about.
Thank you.
Anyways, we have Erika here today.
Yay.
So tell us more about, first, let's go back, right? Tell it, you're from Columbia, you're from Howard County. Tell us all about that journey first.
Okay. Well, I was actually born in New Mexico. I was a Southwest baby, and we moved to Columbia on purpose. My parents sought out this community because of what it stood for, because of the diversity. My parents are originally from New York City. Everything is very segregated there. And after living in the Southwest, and they were being transferred back here, they wanted to make sure that we were moving intentionally somewhere that had a diverse population and where my brother and I would be able to experience a community like that.
Yeah.
And not only did they seek out Columbia specifically, but they wanted me districted to Wild Lake High School. So we moved to a community that was districted to Wild Lake because it was, the most diverse school at the time, and my parents really wanted me to have that.
Yeah.
And it really did shape who I am. I was so fortunate to grow up in this community and have friends from all different backgrounds, all different, every type of background you could imagine. And it also opened up my eyes to, what we call the Colum bubble.
Yes.
the bubble of Columbia, where when you get out into the real world, you're like, oh my goodness, this is not Columbia.
Yeah.
So I did, I was kind of I would say, I wasn't the greatest student back in the day.
Who was?
Not at all. I was a little bit of a rebel rouser, and I learned all about civic engagement at a very young age.
Best. Way to put
that. I did.
I was very invested in sociology,
absolutely,
and culture,
yes. Social justice, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So I kind of I went through a lot in high school. I was a challenging student for my teachers, and I had my fair share of suspensions, expulsion. I'd never expelled, but I definitely suspended, skipped school, all those types of things.
Yeah.
But I also was really engaged in the politics of the time, where we were moving from standardized testing to high stakes standardized testing, where your your future, students' futures, and the evaluations of teachers were linked to standardized testing. And there were a lot of changes that were being made in our school. Wild Lake back in the day, I don't know if you know this, it was a fine arts hub. So our fine arts department was amazing because we had what we called supervised study. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, you could opt out of your core classes and take an entire day of fine arts. Wow. So our dance program, our drama program, our choir, our madrigals, we were the top we were actually ranked in the country. We were amazing because we could dedicate those 2 days. Yeah. And if you didn't want to opt out of a core class, you didn't have to, right? You could, and then those days you were actually given one-on-one attention from the teacher because there was no new learning happening those days. Yeah. Which was it was unique to Wild Lake. No other school had it. It was really amazing, and that's where I was able to kind of develop I was in choir, I was in madrigals, and those were the days that kept me in school. Yeah. Because otherwise I probably would not have been in school as much as I was. Right, right. And what happened at the time was they actually tried to change, because of the pressure from this new standardized testing that was high stakes testing, they were going to make it so that only students in honors and GT classes could opt out those 2 days. So if you were in a regular quote unquote class, you wouldn't be able to opt out. Oh. And unfortunately, because of the system and because of what we see with tracking and the ways that I'm going to say racism kind of penetrates the school system. A lot of the students in the quote regular classes, I hate that label, I know, were Black and brown students. Yeah, and so it was going to be a huge negative impact on our Black and brown students. And so I, along with other students, kind of rebelled against this policy change. Yeah. And it turned into this massive protest. We had walkouts and sit-ins. Wow. And there was an attempt by the school to block us from doing what we were doing. And I ended up getting, legally represented by the ACLU, and we won the case that said that students' First Amendment rights supersede school policy. Wow. So now students are able to, protest and do all of, their First Amendment rights because of that case. And, and so that was my first lesson in civic engagement. But then I definitely had a rough time in school after that. I think that, the system wasn't too happy with me, and I was challenging. I challenged what I was learning. And so, I did all the things that I shouldn't have done. And, But I ended up wanting to come back and be a teacher.
That's the part that I was like,
I know.
Well, okay, I knew the teacher part, but I didn't know that. But this is, again, these are the freaking nuggets that I love, because I'm like, oh my God, this all makes so much sense.
Yep. And so I went away to school. Luckily, my attendance was horrendous in high school. I should not have graduated, but I did, because I had the privilege to do that. But I still had a good GPA. I ended up going to University of Pittsburgh. And then I studied. Pretty darn good. It was a great school. Yeah. Studied political science. And then I ended up studying abroad in Costa Rica. Nice. My last semester of college. So I didn't end up going to my graduation because I was in Costa Rica. And then I went back to Costa Rica for my master's degree in international law and human rights. Wow. Lived there for a very long time. 5 years or so. Yeah. And then I finally was like, I should probably use my degrees. And so I tried to there. Didn't work out so well. Yeah. So I moved back here, and I decided after, I think I had to sit with the fact my mother was an educator. I wanted to try to do something different. And then I realized, you know what? I really would love to be in education, and kind of follow in my mom's footsteps.
The irony is not lost on me.
My poor mother.
There's so many layers of that, actually, but
my poor mom, being an educator, and she was a professor at Towson, so a lot of her students, and she was in the education department, so a lot of her students were my teachers, like her former students were my teachers. And so, imagine the college professor's daughter is like the rebel rouser of the school. Right. Yeah, my poor mom. But yeah, so I ended up going to Towson and getting my master's in teaching, and I was never in a million years did I ever think I would go back to Wild Lake to teach. But I did, and I wanted to create an environment for my students that I felt I lacked in high school. Yeah, I loved Wild Lake. I was proud of Wild But but I think, you always remember those special teachers that made you stay in school.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be that for students. And
right.
I was able to kind of mesh my international law and human rights background and my fluency in Spanish, my love for Latin American culture, and I taught Spanish, and that's what I did. So
oh my gosh.
Went back, and somehow there was a position open. In fact, my former Spanish teacher, Miss Dixon, who at the time was Miss Stanko, she was the best. I mean, she's like a legend in the county. I ended up replacing her at Wild Lake, and she went and moved to the GT department. So I ended up replacing my former teacher, who was the one that kept me. I mean, it was my choir teacher, Miss Adkins, and Miss Stanko or Miss Dixon.
Oh my gosh.
And I ended up taking her spot, and then she moved to GT, and we got to teach together.
Holy moly, what a Cinderella
cool.
story. See, again, this is why I do the podcast, why I love it, because again, like I think I knew from the teacher part forward, but not the backstory. Yeah. Oh my God, that's so freaking cool.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was definitely a crazy journey for sure.
It always is. You know what I mean? Well, and good on you for actually using your degree. You're like talking about that, because I was like, I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. I was going to become a therapist, and here I mean, I guess we can.
I mean, you kind of are. I mean, this is therapy.
Therapeutic for me.
For sure. No, but I think you're definitely, the skills that you have in that degree are definitely being used.
They will find a way out. They always do. Yeah. So then how long were you teaching at Wild Lake, prior to the transition?
I was there almost 13 years.
Wow.
Yep. And same classroom the entire time.
Wow.
I loved it. I think, so almost 13 years. I officially ended my teaching career 2022 and transitioned full-time to executive director.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Yeah. Like right in like that button, like you know what I mean? When I have like the fancy podcast studio,
I
right? Yeah. Okay, well, so then obviously you've been very immersed in the community. Like I know that you saw a need well before you started creating something. But let's fast forward to COVID, right? Okay. Because that's when it like kind of really took root, right?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think, I said I wanted to create an environment for my students that, I needed in high school.
Yeah.
And that is really about, creating a safe space for your students, creating an environment where they feel affirmed and seen and, able to use their power and you had to, I was able to kind of build really strong relationships with my students and their families. And that was the most important thing to me as a teacher. It wasn't teaching Spanish content. I mean, that was important, but the more important part of teaching is you're teaching a human being with life experiences and talents and dreams and challenges and all of these things. And so that was my focus was always about making sure that my students, there was trust and there was community in my classroom. And so my students were they would tell me all sorts of things about their lives. And I knew a lot of my students, worked part-time jobs to contribute to their household income. A lot of them, the only meal they would eat, the full meal, was at school. And so I wanted to, make sure that, again, safe space for them to share their stories, their truth. And so when COVID hit, there was this period of time, it was about, I would say like 2 weeks, maybe a week, where we were like, what is this virus thing? And the kids were like, there was like this idea that we were going to get out of school for a couple weeks. And the kids were like, oh, great, we're going to get out of school. And then all of a sudden it flipped to this is really serious and like people are dying and we're really scared. And a lot of my students had already started losing their part-time jobs because businesses were already preparing. And they were really worried, like, if schools close, like, where am I going to get my food? Where am I going to get my meals? And so the idea, I just posted something on Facebook and I was like, hey guys, if the schools close, who wants to collect donations to make sure our families are fed? Never imagining that it would turn into a nonprofit organization. Like, I literally thought it was going to be a 2-week operation. You were like, let me just do what I can. Like, probably like anybody. Well, not like anybody, but you know what I mean? It's like, exactly. It was let's make sure that during these 2 weeks when schools are closed, that kids have food, right? Absolutely. And obviously that's not what happened. Nope. So we just started, I actually had a lot of former students help me, and we kind of, so when the schools did close, I did I created Columbia Community Care Facebook group the day schools closed. So I had posted 3 days before, like, if the schools closed, then schools closed. So March 14th, I created the Facebook group, and I said, okay, we're going to formalize this and make it somehow,
just a place to kind of like organize, yeah, right, like all information in one spot. Yep.
And I had a whole bunch of people respond on Facebook, like, yeah, I'll help out. People I didn't even know, but were connected to me through whatever channel, whatever network I had created. And then we had former students who kind of scouted out different schools to see the highest number of kids coming to pick up their meals, because the school system still, the cafeteria workers still went in, and our food service workers still went in. And
at every school?
Yeah.
Or just
I'm not sure. I don't want to say. I think it was at every school. I'm not sure.
Well, either way. Okay. Yeah. So
that's a really good question. I should probably know the answer to that, but I don't. But definitely there was, the kids that needed to get their meals were still getting meals outside. So they were setting up tables outside and giving out
that's like
meals.
all in the budget, like paid for. Yeah. Right.
But the idea was, if these kids are walking a mile and a half to get one meal, like, why don't we make sure that there's groceries for them to take as well, so that their families can sustain for longer than a meal, and maybe they don't have to walk that mile and a half there and back to get just a meal.
Right.
And so the idea was to augment like what was happening already, but not to like replace the school system's efforts to feed the kids.
It was like, how can we make this really fruitful for the students that need this, but how can we, help them benefit a little bit more.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so I had some former students who kind of like drove around and scouted out like the schools that had the most amount of kids coming every day. And we set up shop at, I think it was 5 different schools across the county, mainly in Columbia.
Yeah.
And we were open, I believe, 7 days a week at first. Wow. And we just started bringing donations, and our home base was Swansfield Elementary School.
I was going to say, because, and I think you had told me this already, because we live in Hobbs Glen around the coast, and my in-laws live in Hickory Ridge, so I drive that every single day, basically. And so, like, without even, again, I had only lived in Columbia about a year then, because we moved here in 2019.
Okay.
So, but like, without even knowing what your organization was, I was like, you could tell what it was from the road, and the operation, it was very consistent. You know what I mean? We saw it happening. Yeah.
And there was like a mile long of people waiting for food. It was crazy. Yeah. And so, I mean, it just showed what the need, it showed that it exposed the need. I think the unique thing about CCC is that, it exposed the need that we already knew existed,
right?
Because you can't unsee people waiting in a line outside, right? And I think that it showed the power of community and the power of love when we all come together to address a need, and what can happen when that happens, right?
Right.
And so, we just set up shop. We had hundreds of volunteers. A lot of folks were saying that it was good for their mental health because they were able to get out.
Yeah.
And we had to like, every day the guidelines were changing. So we had to like adjust. Like I remember first it was like 6 feet and we were spraying everything with Lysol because they were saying that COVID was getting on the material, packaging. And then it was like, you got to wear masks. Then we adjusted to masks and it was a 6 feet. So we just had to adjust every couple days and make sure that we were following guidelines, and it just happened.
Yeah.
And that was the story. And it turned into this, and then eventually I was, teaching, virtual teaching.
Yeah.
So
how did you juggle both of those? Because
it was rough.
Right.
I was up at, 5 a.m. Getting everything set up at Swansfield and then rushing home and teaching. And then, because we only had a couple classes a day, so it wasn't like all day long.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of the in between. So I would go to Swansfield, make sure everything was set up, rush home and teach, rush back out to our sites, pick everything back up, rush back home to teach, and then go for a run. Like that was my day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was crazy.
How did you manage all the donations and like where, like, I'm trying to think of like, I mean, at this point, now that it's established, right, and growing, like I feel like when you first start, it's easy to kind of do some collections, right? But now you're servicing a large population, so you need an even larger source of donations. So, I mean, it sounds like you had volunteers running the thing, but like, how did you manage just like the flow of donations, because I mean, now that you're literally the ED of an actual nonprofit, you know, it's kind of like a never-ending stream you need to maintain. So it's like, how did you manage that as well?
It was a lot of different strategies. So we had my kitchen was one.
Yeah.
My husband would come home. My husband does this frequently. He comes home and he just like looks at like what I've done in that, and he's like, okay, he just shakes his head like he's walking. He's like, what are you doing?
My husband's given me the same look, not for the same reason, but yes.
Yeah, he's like, what are you doing today? Okay, you do you. But it was originally like a lot of the donations were in my kitchen.
Yep.
On my front porch.
People were dropping some stuff there. Yeah.
Yep. What else? We had to get storage pods.
Yeah.
So we had storage pods at many of our different sites. So that was really helpful.
Okay, that makes sense.
We had all of our perishables would go immediately. So like we never had perishables that were left over. It was always just like non-perishable cans, things like that. Mm-hmm. So anything, veggies, fruits, milk, eggs, all that stuff would go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A lot of our volunteers kept stuff in their cars and would like bring it back the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty much storage pods, my kitchen, my front porch, and people's cars.
Wow.
Was how we, that's how we did it.
And we're at the time, I mean, I'm sure it's still like, I feel like now it's like grown and things like that, because now you've got like established partners and things like that.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that the donations were all community level?
Yeah, all community level. I forgot to mention, we realized early on we needed to do delivery. Because we had a lot of elders,
I remember you telling me
quarantine
about that.
people. So early on we were like, oh my gosh, we need a delivery. And so originally I was just doing delivery. Like I would, like someone would call, they would like give me an order and I would just grab what was available. Mm-hmm. And then we turned it into an actual functioning process. So we had two churches, New Hope Church in down Guilford, and then Bethel Korean Church in Ellicott City. Mm-hmm. And those two churches actually ended up running our delivery service.
Wow.
So they kept a lot of donations as well, and they set everything up the way that we did it at our sites, like a grocery store. And we had volunteers. I was doing at one point everything by hand. Like, looking back, it's crazy. Like I would have
I'm just thinking about like the organization part of it. That's why I'm asking. I'm like, how did you?
It was crazy. Like now we have a tech guy that like everything is like we put in a Google form. It goes to a spreadsheet. It connects to a volunteer. Like it's very it's a smooth process. At the time, I was literally taking orders, writing them down, sending them out in a Google Doc it was crazy. It would take hours and hours a day. And if I didn't do it the night before, it wouldn't function the next day. So every single night I was running the system to make sure that our deliveries were getting done. But we had, so it was Bethel and New Hope, and they set everything up.
Wow.
And it was amazing. We had, I don't know how many deliveries a day, like 20, 30, 40 a day. And people were... And
that's outside of the school stations that you were set up at. Wow.
Yep. And so we still do that. We still have our deliveries. Just a better system. And our churches eventually became churches again. So they started operating as churches eventually.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they also service their own needs.
They do.
Too, right? Yeah.
But they, eventually they were like, we have to go back to our services.
Right,
and I was
right.
Thank you for. They were amazing. I will forever be thankful. For what they did.
Of course. Yeah. So this all it just started with a Facebook post and then quickly exploded into a very large operation. And this was all in 2020. And then we quickly realized that COVID wasn't going away.
Yeah.
So tell us about the evolution from 2020 to 22, because 22 is when you effectively walked away from teaching, but you also formalized your nonprofit. So kind of like talk us through the journey there.
Yeah. I think, the spark was COVID, but the need has always been there. Yeah. And so we realized like once COVID kind of simmered down a little bit.
Yeah. Manageable COVID. Livable COVID that we were in.
Exactly. We definitely realized like the need was still there. In fact, it had kind of increased. I think, the financial effects of COVID, the job loss, everything that happened during COVID, like those effects were still lingering.
Yeah.
And not only that, like we have a population in this county. We now I know what to call it, but it's called the ALICE population, so asset limited, income constrained, employed. So these are families that have full-time, employed family members, but they're still unable to make ends meet in the county. And we know that 1 in 5 families are struggling with food in this county, and 1 in 4 children are. And it's about 25. It's grown to about 25% of the county falls under this ALICE population. So they don't qualify for social services. They don't qualify for other avenues, SNAP benefits or anything like that. And so we are literally the organization that is able to serve them because we do not ask for identification or proof of need. There's no application process. It's we trust that the folks who are using our services need it. In fact, we recently did a survey just to kind of give ourselves more data.
Right. No, exactly. That always helps.
And it was, really eye-opening, kind of confirmed what we already knew. Right. But just that, we're able to help families that are, they're choosing between like the rent and food. And so it's important because we're able to help. Like, we have a really good relationship with the Howard County Food Bank. And we'll get sometimes they'll say, hey, we have extra donations, do you need? And sometimes they have families that they can't serve, so they'll send them to us. And so we're not, we're trying to fill a need in the county. We make sure that all of our, we take extra precaution for safety of our families, just with everything that's going on. But, it's really about how are we kind of not supplementing, but assisting with extra help for families that don't have anywhere else to go. And so we're all about community and partnerships and relationships. We're not about competition. We're not competing for hunger. Like, that's crazy.
No. Oh my God.
It's really about, how are we able to best serve our families? And we also address urgent needs. So we do transportation. People will say, I need a ride to the doctor or the grocery store, or just, young people that are kind of stuck somewhere and have no way to get home. And so we also do emergency transportation. Any kind of like urgent need we can fill, we do.
That's amazing.
So 20 to 22 realized, this has become a massively large organization that is serving a need that maybe hasn't necessarily been met fully before. We had a name at the time, like we had grown. And so I had an attorney at the time that was saying, luckily we had a law firm that took us under pro bono.
That's great.
And the attorneys were like, look, all of our nonprofits in our pro bono department have the ones that have full-time paid EDs survive. The ones that don't. And they're like, you really got to make a choice whether you want to do this full-time or teach full-time, but you can't do both. And I really had to think about it because, I loved my students and I loved teaching my students and I loved my classroom. I didn't necessarily love the system.
Oh, of course.
At all. And I was already kind of struggling at that 13-year mark about like...
Well, and you're entering COVID, and then any little cracks that were there were...
Yes. And we had an opportunity, I think, to do school different at that point, and kind of rethink how we do school. And that didn't happen. And it was very frustrating. And I think at that point I was like, look, I can transition, but I knew I still wanted to do youth-centered work. So 2022, we formalized, became a 501c3. And then we started incorporating other things that matter to me. Wellness for moms. So we do, we have an event tomorrow night that I can talk about in a little bit. But youth mentorship and wellness for moms, and we say those who mother. So we, those are two things that really matter to us. And I think that it's all about like how the interconnectedness of everything. Our young people are struggling, and we want to provide holistic support for Howard County families. And so we solidified, made CCC a 501c3 and expanded into youth programs, and we say community programs, but mainly focused around moms and women, and we say those who mother. So that was that transition. Now it's what it is.
Isn't that crazy? Well, it's just, what a ride, you know what I mean? And now, like, and I feel like you grew exponentially from 2020 to 22, and even from 22 to now. I can't believe we're in 2026. You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
So talk about the growth from there, and specifically like now your massive events that you've been putting on, and like now again, like and now I feel like this is kind of the phase where you started like really sounds like you orchestrated these big county and state level partnerships, really, because that's what's kind of really exciting to see now.
Yeah, I mean, we've really been able to, I jumped into nonprofit not knowing anything about nonprofits, right? So I had to learn what I was doing. I mean, I was learning as I was going. I've learned a lot along the way.
Yep.
I've had a lot of amazing other nonprofit leaders that have generously helped me figure this stuff out. So yeah, I mean, we've built amazing partnerships. A lot of the partnerships that we were able to build were based off of our other, career relationships.
Yeah.
So, just, my board is amazing. A lot, they're completely different backgrounds in all different career, professional spaces. So they're able to lend expertise to the board. So we've been able to do some strategic planning, build a very solid budget, and form really strong partnerships to solidify our programs to make sure that we're on the right track. And then most excitedly, we have some pretty cool relationships to throw on massive events. The Bon, which is very fun.
Very fun.
And also very, very fortunate to have partnered with some awesome folks to build a community center. And we just had a land blessing for the space. So it's the old Columbia Flier building.
Yeah.
I've actually had this dream for well over a decade of having a community center. I think that rec centers and community centers save lives. And as a teacher and as a student, I remember that when we had nowhere to go or nothing to do, that's when we got into trouble.
Literally.
And so, having a safe space for young people and their families to come and have access to all sorts of programs and resources I've been wanting to do this for so long. And luckily, by the grace of the Most High, I don't know how this happened, but it actually came to fruition. And so we submitted an RFP for the Columbia Flier building, and we won it, and with partners that are amazing. And now it's becoming a 65,000 square foot community center.
We're so excited for this.
I cannot wait.
So excited. I mean, and I've already been talking to the other, members and partners that are also just as equally excited for this. But it's, it's not just the organizations that get to be a part of it, but it's like for the community. Yeah, and absolutely. That's what's just so incredible.
Thank you. It's super exciting. The idea, it's going to be called The Source. The idea is that there's a lot of reasons why we named it The Source. But, the idea is you can come to The Source and get everything you need in one place. Right. And so, it's for everybody. It's for, anyone who wants to come, and, we'll have a massive gym. We're going to have a food hall with like local businesses, which is I'm very excited about.
That's going to be so cool.
We're going to have content creation rooms and youth spaces and lounges and makerspace and game rooms and a relaxation reflection space. And so whatever your need is for the day, you can come, and it's going to be, an open space for young people to come and their families. And we'll have mental health care, physical health care. I'm really excited. We have across the street, we have the new urgent care there.
UMG. Yes, Stephanie's one of my really good friends.
I was so excited about that because now if we have some sort of urgent need, we can send them right across the street and make sure that they're, the dental is there, the PT, physical therapy, and urgent care. Making sure that our partnerships are like right there, right?
They literally are. You're so accessible because you're right off Little Patuxent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like community college is there, the hospital is there. Right. You know what I mean? There's just great, right off 29. Exactly. You know what I mean? Great accessibility.
And we're right behind Wild Lake Middle and High.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be, there's a lot of walkable, make sure it's so accessible for all,
community.
I am so excited. I cannot wait. This has been a dream come true. I visited a community center in Chicago back in like 2014. I think it was 2014, maybe a little bit later. But anyway, I walked in and I was like, this is what we need in Howard County. Like, why do we not have this? It was in a neighborhood called the Back of the Yards neighborhood in Chicago. And it was literally like right in the middle of like 4 gang territories. And the members would come to the community center, and it was a neutral zone. So it was known like your affiliations stay at the door, and you have access to a ton of different services. They had woodworking shops, they had mental health care, they had restorative justice, peace circles.
Wow.
They had, and you would have, the entire community would come no matter what your background was, where you were from, and it was a neutral zone, and it was a safe space. And it was amazing. They had a gym, they had a garden outside, they had a labyrinth outside, they had all different types of services, a food pantry, and I was like, this is so amazing.
So cool.
And young people had a safe space to go.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need this so badly. And so the fact that we're able to do this now is amazing.
Right.
I'm so excited. And it's going to look really cool.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
it's going to be,
really cool space.
I know. And what's the timeline? I mean, I know builds take forever, but what's that timeline looking like?
So we're breaking ground late this month.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, late this month. So it'll probably be at least 18 months before it's like up and running.
Right.
At least. But we're things are going smoothly. The community is really excited about it.
Oh my gosh.
The land blessing was, so we decided to bring together faith leaders across the county and just, bless the land and
I love that.
put our well wishes and prayers into the space for what it can be and what we're hoping it will be. And it was amazing. Like all of these, it was one of the most beautiful things I think I've seen in Howard County in a very long time. It was, leaders from all different denominations, all different faith traditions came together and blessed the land.
That's amazing.
It was beautiful.
Wow.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean that just shows you, the power of like, I feel like our column bubble, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like how much we love this area and kind of bringing that love to that space,
It was incredible.
So now with the new community center, will some of your, obviously I know part of the way you were operating was because it was COVID, because like schools were shut down and things like that. Will a lot of your efforts now centralize to this, or will some things still be operating?
Yeah, so we're still gonna, so both. All of our programs, we now have, the biggest problem in the county is space. Everyone's always trying to find space.
Everything, right.
So now we'll have our own space. So this is going to be CCC's headquarters.
Yeah.
The operation, so right now our headquarters is at Long Reach Village Center. We're very fortunate that we have this space, but it's a very tight space, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't get through as many deliveries as we want because we can only fit like 5 volunteers in the pantry area at a time to collect the delivery orders. Right. It's just a tight space. So we'll have a new headquarters where we can, it'll be large enough that we can really get through our deliveries. We can maybe open 5 days a week instead of only 3 days a week. All of our programs, so our youth mentorship programs, Stand and Push, that we partner with, will have a home, so they'll be housed there.
That's great.
Our programs that we do for mothers. Well, probably right now we're really fortunate that the Harriet Tubman Cultural Center does our restorative, our community circles for mothers, for those who mother.
Yeah.
So probably some things will keep where they are. We're really appreciative of that partnership. So, but we'll also have an option to be,
now you'll be able to be centralized, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then we'll probably still keep our Long Reach. We will keep our Long Reach distribution site, and then Oakland Mills will definitely stay there too.
Yeah.
The only kind of if is maybe Wild Lakes in person will move, because right now we're at the Interfaith Center. Although we do love the Interfaith Center, and we love our partnerships. We love the spaces we have right now. But probably a mix of both.
Probably, yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Well, and then like in that funny way, it's like if for instance, like if you gave up the Interfaith Center, that like allows space for something else, to grow there too. But like,
exactly.
Because like I can see that, like, geographically speaking, you'll be right there. But lots of good options. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh.
But it's gonna be, we can have parties there. We can have events there. We're gonna have like a large garden area outside. We've been really intentional about ensuring that like the mature trees are saved, that we're growing. Yeah. We're growing. And then I forgot to mention, Aya Montessori daycare is expanding. So they're going to have, we'll have kids there. And it's very, very exciting.
Holy cow.
I cannot wait. There's going to be, this was not my idea, but I'm not hating on it.
Yeah.
There's going to be a wine bar in the middle of the first floor.
Definitely don't hate that.
No, don't hate that at all. I was like, that sounds great. So we'll, for parents we have 2 NBA size courts.
Wow.
So we'll be able to have like host tournaments and have league practices, but also open gym.
Yeah.
We want to make this a place where young people can go after school. So we'll have to, we'll make sure that we have that open gym time, especially late night weekends.
Right.
But we can host tournaments. We want families to be there. They can go, access our food hall.
Wow.
We have event spaces so people can do events there.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's going to be massive.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun.
Oh my gosh.
And I'll have an office finally.
Yes.
I'm really excited about that. I was like, can I have a sauna and a balcony? And they were like, sure.
Yeah, right. I think you've earned them.
Yeah. Not so much.
Right. Exactly.
But finally have an office space, which will be nice.
Oh my God, that'll be like I said, so cool to be like centralized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like in one way, I don't know, like again, because I feel nomadic with my work because I work everywhere and anywhere. Like it's sometimes like like then like having an office, like it's like the biggest blessing. And like now I go to the same space.
I know. It's going to be a new venture. I do think that I'm like you. I actually don't do well sitting in one space the whole day.
Right.
So I'll probably, but the fact that it's, I can get up and go around to the community, observe the program, see what's going on.
It's the organization part of I feel like we're very similar, whereas like I am very B+. I can function.
Yeah.
I like to say like I flirt with type A. Like I need that structure. I need the spreadsheets and on all that so that like, because as long as those things exist, then I can be the chaotic like wind that moves with it. Yeah.
And I'm what I'm most excited about?
Yeah.
All of my classroom stuff, like my like stuff that was on the walls, all of my little cute artifacts, like my memories from my students are sitting in boxes in my basement, and I can't wait to bring that to my office and decorate. Like I want to decorate and like recreate like all of the things that matter to me, the memories, and I'm really excited about decorating an office.
Well, it's just like just like what you're doing for the community, dedicating your space, like because our environments matter. Just like we're literally talking about this, like our environments shape ourselves, they shape the community, and like you will still be nomadic. You'll just like you said, you're just going to be an even more organized version of that, because like everything will have a place, and you'll have the office when you do need to sit for 2 seconds. You know what I mean? And orchestrate all your calls and meetings that you're going to be. Because I'm just realizing like once you have the space, you're going to need like even more staff. I'm guessing to specifically run this building.
Yep, and I have my list of staff, my dream list of who I want. Many of them are former educators or educators now. Who it's like the dream team of who I would want to be there. Thinking about like who would be best in the building to interface with our youth, make sure our young people are supported, make sure that there's like it's managed well. I can't wait.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
Well, that I will already get you back on here once in a year from now when things are kind of getting a little bit closer. Awesome. I know it's going to be quite a ride, as it always is. But 18 months still is like pretty quick when you think about building a massive organization like this. So
and I've never run a community center, so I'm new territory.
Girl,
we'll see how that
goes.
I know. Like, what am I doing? What did I get myself into?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is. But we want to make sure that everything like operationally is in place like well before we open doors.
Oh yeah.
So that's really like a huge focus right now.
Oh, for sure. Especially when you're organizing these kids and things like that. But I think what's really cool is that what I'm excited to see as you guys continue to grow. Like you've already established all of these relationships and programming, things like that. Like now that you'll have the space, like I'm like, oh my God, you're gonna like there's already going to be so many more partnerships and things that are going to come from having this space, and that's going to be so cool to see that evolve too. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, again, like as a mom of like younger elementary school kids, I'm like I can't wait to take them to a place. I mean, because we love going to the libraries and the different things that they offer there, that I'm like, I'm so excited to see what you guys will be able to offer there. You know what I mean?
I'm excited. And a really cool partnership that we have right now is with the Community Ecology Institute Freetown Farm. We actually just got a plot of land to farm for, like, it's going to be a Columbia Community Care plot. And they've done an amazing job. When we were in the Flier building, like, before we transitioned to Long Reach, they had built us an outdoor garden, community garden, where we were growing our own food.
Yeah.
And so I love the fact, my dream is to, like, have free shuttles that, like, go back and forth between the source and, like, the Freetown Farm, the source and the new library, the source and other village centers. And so I want to make sure that, like, everybody has access, and that we're also giving access to other organizations that we partner with through some sort of, like, free shuttle. So I'm looking into this. This is a dream. I'm naming it now so that it happens.
Well, and I kind of feel, I feel the energy, because I know that you're definitely a person that, once you, like you said, you visited that community center. I mean, you didn't know at the time, you were, you know what I mean? But it's just like, that's the power. I feel it, because I'm like, I know it's gonna come.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Oh my gosh. Well, cheers to you, Erika. I'm so glad to have met you. So glad that I get to witness this, and keep us posted for all your amazing events. And for people that want to either learn more, donate, get involved, or just share with friends and family, where can they find out more about Columbia Community Cares?
We are on all social media platforms. Actually, that's not true. We're on Instagram and Facebook.
Yep.
To me, that's all.
That is all.
Also LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
Yep.
So just Columbia Community Care on those platforms, and then also ColumbiaCommunityCare.org has all of our volunteer signups. I did want to mention we are completely volunteer run.
It's amazing.
I'm the only employee.
Right.
And so we do, everyone is volunteer. We always need volunteers.
Yep.
So ColumbiaCommunityCare.org, and then mark calendars for December 3rd is going to be our 2026 bonbon.
Yep.
Performer to be announced, but it's going to be someone amazing.
Oh my gosh.
It's the best event of the year. It's really exciting.
It sure is.
So definitely buy a ticket. It supports us. It's our big fundraiser, and it's a part of our toy drive. So every year we do a big toy distribution for the county. Last year we had like over 1,000 families come.
Wow.
So we have it's a party. It's bring a toy.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of do fundraising and provide the seasonal, distribution as well. So
amazing.
Yeah. That's it.
Cheers. Thank you so much, Erika.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mom Talk Maryland. If you loved it, leave a review, share it with a friend, or tag me at the.columbiamom on Instagram. I'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep supporting local, and keep being the incredible mom, woman, human that you are.